everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt.
Yeah, you are. And we have changed the format, not Matt. It's still the same old Matt.
Sorry, folks.
But we are here this week to take you on a recap of 2023, the current year we are in, from January through July, to bring you the best of new music from old artists and new and some of the shit we found in between all of that.
Yeah, we found a lot of shit, but we found some gold too. We're going to try to dive deeper than the charts to bring music that isn't sitting right on the surface, because who needs charts, right? I certainly don't need charts. If you don't already know that people like Sam Smith or Kelly Clarkson or even Pink have albums out, you're probably not a fan. We'll point that stuff out as we need to. If something strikes us, we'll let you know it's there.
Yeah, we will. We've both felt the experience of feeling like there's no more good music in this world. We've gotten to a point where we've been like, everything from the past is good, but what's coming out now is just awful.
It's all shite.
Shite. But through the course of creating episodes for the Jam Yearbook and going through all of the years, especially the more recent ones, we found out that we were kind of wrong.
We discovered there was a lot of great new music.
Yeah.
And it was still getting released, but we didn't notice. It's not easy when you get older and you rely on the radio or what your kids might be listening to. We probably get, well, not probably, we do get lazier when we get older. We read fewer reviews about albums or even songs, and we don't take the time to go looking for anything new. It's easy to just take what's served up by the industry machine and decide that, you know what, we're old, new music sucks, just play 80s, we're all good.
And we've also recognized the trap of getting caught up just in plain old nostalgia. I've made too many playlists with the same songs from the early 90s or the 1980s.
Preach, man.
Yeah. And I know there are people out there that are going to say the 90s made the best music and the 80s made the best music. And I don't have any disrespect for those opinions. There have been times that these playlists, for me, though, have been so similar that I become bored with music and disengaged with it. For the past couple of years, I have been trying to listen to new music each week. I've spoken about that already on the show. I've created a playlist called New Music. I use it as a marker to go back to. But if you've listened to this show, you'll know how caught up Matt and I have been with listening to music from individual years. There just hasn't been enough time for me to go back and find it again.
God, yeah. And there's a staggering amount of new releases every month now. It can be extremely difficult to find something new that really, hits you where you want to feel it. I lost count of how many times just going through stuff this week, and I'm like, nope.
Oh, I understand that, because there's more new music now that's accessible. It's so easy to just put something out on Spotify. I think we grew up in a prime time in the 1980s where the record industry was trying to throw different things out there to see what would happen. But as we've noted, for the past 20 to 30 years, they just think there's one formula to hit music. And that's what they've been throwing over and over and over again. And we're not getting the same variety. So we've had to go look for that.
Yeah, and because the record labels also put themselves in this box, right? Because you mentioned the 80s, where that was kind of like a golden age of bands coming out and exploding. But then in the 90s, record labels put themselves in a box by signing Prince or Madonna to these huge, just cumbersome contracts that could never be fulfilled. It's kind of like athletes playing football. You want to pay them for past years of service,
but they're not going to give you the same thing down the road.
Exactly. You need them to produce now. We're not going to pay you for what you did then. We're going to pay you for what you did now. Yeah. And yeah, the record labels, and a lot of them crumbled under the pressure. But new music, it took us a while to come around to it. And we found some gold, and we'll tell you about it later, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Unfortunately, we thought we were done with the Reaper, but there are some big losses this year, and we're recapping like the first half of 2023. We're not going to dwell because, well, for one, it's depressing and it should still be fresh in everybody's minds. But life goes on. It's easy to forget. So we're going to say RIP and we love you to Jeff Beck, David Crosby, Burt Bacharach, Harry Belafonte. Oh, great, great voice. Gordon Lightfoot, Tina Turner. This one really kind of hurt.
Yeah, that was heavy.
And then most recently, Randy Meisner from the Eagles, the beloved Tony Bennett, and probably more importantly, Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, big losses. But let's look on the bright side of things, because along with all of those losses, we're also going to talk about the anniversary albums of the month, if there are big ones. So, not every single month is going to have a big anniversary, but there are some from January until now that we know were massive. We had the 20-year anniversary of the White Stripes Elephant album and Linkin Park's Meteora. We had the 30th anniversary now of the Smashing Pumpkins Siamese Dream, Radiohead's Pablo Honey. Creep is 30 years old.
Oh, wow. Feel old, everybody.
Yeah. And Bjork's debut is the name of the album, 30 years
Yep.
old. You want to go
Love you,
back
Bjork.
even further? Here comes some big names. Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues, 40 years old, along with Police, Synchronicity, Bryan Adams, Cut Like a Knife, Def Leppard, Pyromania, Dio, Holy Diver, U2, War, Bowie, Let's Dance, Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind, Metallica, Kill 'Em All, Quiet Riot, Metal Health, ZZ Top, Eliminator, Billy Joel, An Innocent Man, Madonna, her debut 40 years ago, and Stevie Ray Vaughan 40 years ago with Texas Flood. And then let's go back 50 years from 2023. We've got Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Elton John, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, Raw Power, David Bowie, Aladdin Sane, Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, Eagles, Desperado, Aerosmith, before all their greatest hits came along, debuts, Bruce Springsteen, Greeting from Asbury Park, Tom Waits, Closing Time, and Queen. Like what are we doing here?
Those last four were debuts and they're 50 years old.
It's something else. So, okay, Matt, we have a new format to the show. Do you want to talk about where we're going to go from here?
All right, surprise. We're still here. And we're going to start off with Bad Ends. This is a new group formed around Bill Berry of REM. They had a debut out in January. I thought it kind of might be interesting to people, and because there's some nostalgic REM sounds.
Yeah, Bad Ends was okay. It kind of sounds like they got a bad cover band with a fake Michael Stipe up front a little bit.
You're not wrong.
I kind of wish I wasn't making that sound comparison immediately, though, when I knew Bill Berry was in the band.
You can't help it, though. I mean, you can't help but hear the REM sound from the very beginning. All the members, they all hail from Athens, Georgia. So I can see how it's REM. They're from Athens. I'm sure they had a huge amount of influence on everything that was coming out of there.
And I see it as kind of good enough to tour on his name, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to see them.
Yeah, most days I wouldn't go out of my way to see REM.
Well, I would.
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't seem like they'd be very exciting in concert.
I'm sure they put on great shows in the 90s. I think they built a lot of their early career in live music. I think this is closer to the early days of REM than the 90s onward. And I'm closer to that pre-90s REM personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But something else that came along, the new Iggy Pop album. You brought awesome. That to me. I loved it. That was a good find. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a compilation album of sorts. Instead of a greatest hits of songs, it feels like it weaves through the different sounds and styles of his career. Taylor Hawkins drums on a couple tracks, and there's plenty of other guests. I mean, Stone Gossard.
Yeah. Josh Klinghoffer, Chad Smith, Dave Navarro, Duff, Eric Anderson from Jane's Addiction. This album's absolutely stacked with great players. and I think it's great. Klinghoffer and Chad Smith also backed Eddie Vedder's album last year. So they seem to be some kind of core that broke away from the Chili Peppers. They must have formed a good friendship when they were playing together there,
Yeah, I think so too.
which is interesting because Chad Smith has said he's not super close to the guys in that band.
It does feel more like a business relationship.
Mhm.
They know there's more success together. The Chili Peppers, they're kind of like so big, they don't have to hang out. They just show up. They know
Mhm.
what they're doing. And really, does Chad do more than just lay down a beat? I mean, he does this thing with the snare where it's like dun, 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 dun. That's like almost think he reintroduced that in the 90s. And I've never had a moment of being blown away by him, which I get. Everyone should play within the service of the song.
Yeah, I think he's actually gotten better with age. I think, and that's if you listen to the Eddie Vedder album, but we won't talk much about it because it was last year. But if you listen to that album, you can hear a change in his style of playing. And the past couple of Chili Peppers albums have come along. You hear some growth in his playing, even as he's gotten older. But he's just really kind of a solid drummer. You don't hear
Yeah.
drummers talking about Chad Smith badly, but you don't also hear them talk about how he's kind of amazing. I think he's a modern day Charlie Watt. Nothing super, but still great to hold down that backbeat.
And that's why people should be actually talking about him, because what you just said, Charlie Watt, he
Yeah.
held down the line so everybody else could just noodle about. And really, what's a drummer going to do when he's playing with Flea? You
Not
gotta,
much.
you gotta, you gotta lay down a beat so
Yeah.
everybody else can follow. There's got to be some backbone to it.
Yeah.
Moving on from the Chili Peppers, for 83 years old, Smokey Robinson's voice is still so amazing. He doesn't sound old.
I'm so glad that you brought Smokey Robinson up in the notes for this
Oh,
because when I saw that, I was just like, oh my goodness. When are we going to have a chance to talk
yeah.
about
How
Smokey Robinson?
finally?
Yeah, his voice is still smooth. And you're right, his voice doesn't sound old, but his music doesn't sound old either. Whoever he's working with, they know what they're doing.
Not at all. These songs you can actually envision him doing. It doesn't
Mhm.
sound like somebody says, "Hey, we're going to put your voice on a modern track," and it'll just create a buzz because, oh shit, it's Smokey Robinson. No, there's nothing too far out of pocket of what you would expect. But I couldn't get over, and this probably could be fueling my reaction to the album,
Mhm.
just how great he sounded. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal. I couldn't believe
It-
how great he sounded.
I think he and Iggy Pop surround themselves with the right people.
That, and I think people are probably lined up around the block to work with those two.
Oh, they would be. So the unexpected album for me, they're still around, was a blast from the past. And it was Royston Langdon's President Alien. Royston, he's not a household name. His 90s band Space Hog wasn't huge, but most people back then probably knew their radio hit in the meantime. I saw them open for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and it made me a fan. We sat around many nights listening to that album in my apartment in Bennington. I really enjoyed it. But I like how he does the change by one letter from Resident Alien to President Alien.
I had skipped this over until you texted me about it. I've listened to some other projects of his, and I assumed it was going to be essentially Space Hog, which I loved, but there's a shelf life for things. And this was Space Hog. It was Space Hog to a degree, but it stripped down versions of the songs on their first album. And usually I do not like it when artists do that, but it's Space Hog. It's really not much of a cash grab. And maybe because I like Resident Alien so much, I was open to it.
Here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of revisionist albums. U2 made one this year that just didn't work for me. I don't need old U2 performing slowed down versions of their old songs. But Royston Langdon really accomplished something special here. This new his new arrangements really work, and they breathe a new life into the older music. The Candyman, one of my favorite songs of theirs. The new version of it is absolutely fantastic.
That was the key track for me. And I think it's the first track on the album
It
too.
is. Yeah.
It's key. It's a really good version. I had trouble with just listening to that U2 Songs of Surrender. I didn't know going in that it was a reimagining of older songs until we had talked about it, and it kind of made it even harder, to be honest. I didn't hear one that made me think it was an improvement. Huge fans may think differently. It was made as a partner to Bono's memoir, 40 Chapters. So they said, hey, let's do 40 songs. And there was no payoff.
And that's funny that you brought that to the show, because I didn't realize until I saw your notes that it had an association with his memoir. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. This is just another session of ego for Bono. And he brought all the
Yes.
guys together.
Oh, I didn't want to be the asshole to say that.
I will be the asshole. I love U2. I have great fond
I do
memories
too.
of U2.
Great respect.
But I will absolutely say that there's a lot of self-importance going on.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in those songs. And when you told me that it came along with a book, it just made perfect sense. Because as soon as you say something like a reimagining of older songs, I'm like, come on, man. This isn't Willy Wonka. We're not imagining anything. You're just actually grabbing the guys from the band and going into the studio and making them re-record them because you have to do it and they owe it to you.
And I will say that the first move of this chess match was made by Bono. He wrote the album, and then the Edge took it upon himself to say, oh, you're going to do this? Well, I'm going to make an album revolving around what you're writing. And then they kind of collaborated and said 40 and 40. And then the other two just said, yeah, we're the rhythm section. We're just going to play along.
All right, move us along.
I will move us along. So let's get off the YouTube talk and Kool and the Gang. You texted me that they had a new album, and I was extremely excited.
Yeah, you were. You were like, yeah.
I was like, fucking yeah. People just want to have fun. I really, and I truly mean this, I really wanted to love this, but I did not. And it bummed me out for a couple days. And that's honesty right there. It's tight, but it's not tight in the 70s funk way. It's tight in a, hey, we're going to put this in the whatever program we need, and we're going to line up every beat. Boom, 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 boom. And you're going to hit this sound profile that everybody wants to hear right now. It's cliched. And I heard some rapping. There just wasn't enough continuity with the vocals to make it feel like I was hearing a cohesive album.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we could probably look back, and Kool and the Gang probably has released, a dozen albums since the 1970s through the 80s.
Yeah, and I need to go back and look at those, but I wanted like Jungle Boogie.
But you always want that kind of nostalgia to come from like this.
Yeah. And that's the problem with something you hear for the first time. You want that to be what you hear from going forward.
One of the things that we didn't look up and maybe discuss is the personnel who worked on the album, because it would be interesting to see if, like, Kool and the Gang used to have like 12 to 15 people in it on the stage.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if maybe like at least 5 of those guys are still part of the band.
But a lot of that could be because they didn't have JT, James Taylor, doing the main vocals. That kind of threw me off a little bit. That could be where I was having difficulty connecting with it. Other than the rapping, that was just weird. But moving on from Kool and the Gang, we're gonna head into kind of like the 90s. A throwback, Kula Shaker. They had an album called Waves.
Oh, yeah.
It was catchy, and the Shakers kind of help with that. And the Sha-na-na-nas on that one song.
Oh, they do a great job delivering catchy hooks and melodies, just like Space Hog from the similar time. I don't think they ever really took off to an astounding level in the States that you would see, but they still tour here. I could have seen Kula Shaker maybe a year ago, and I kind of regret not going.
You should have. Yeah.
I know.
That would be me. That would just be me. Oh, Cooler Shaker. I don't need to hear that one song, but I'm
Oh,
sure there would have been a great show of fantastic
no,
musicians.
there are probably 5 songs of theirs, at least off that one
Oh
album from the
yeah.
90s. I would have gone back.
Yep.
But what's cool here is that they never lost that original appeal. And that's what you're hearing in the music they're putting out now. So if you liked Kula Shaker in 1995, 1996, 1997, I'm losing track of that now. But if you like them then, this fits right in with that music. And it's cool to see that.
So keeping with the 90s though, Dog Star. I mean, come
We
on.
are the Wild Stallions.
Oh yeah. Hey, but really, Dog Star. They released their first music in over 30 years with Everything Turns Around. It's just a single, and there's no new news on an album yet. But you have to be curious about a band with Keanu Reeves in it. Come on, everybody loves Keanu.
They
The
do.
guy's the guy is he can walk on water. The
Oh.
guy's just a fantastic human being.
People do love him, and you can't blame them. Unfortunately, Dog Star for me, it was generic 90s grunge. It wasn't bad, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Keanu. I'd probably be intentionally trying to stir something up for our hate mail if I did. They probably sounded decent in a club in 1995. I probably will not run out and buy the album though.
No, it's nothing earth shattering, but it's great to see Keanu playing the bass and just being himself, playing music.
It sounds consistent with what they did back in
Yeah,
1995 or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. So for me, talking about Dog Star, anything else we've talked about, I try so hard to listen with an open mind. And I wanted the Smashing Pumpkins Autumn Act 3, although it turned into being kind of one album, to be a comeback of sorts. I listened to it again this week after thinking I'd been really excited about it back in May when it was released. Matt, we must have been having a slow week for you guys, or we were having a really shitty year we were covering on the Jam Yearbook because it did not hold up. It's better than anything they've released since the 90s, in my opinion. But at 2 hours and 18 minutes long, it was too much. Billy Corgan, trim at least an hour and 18 minutes off of that. And you might have had a great album somewhere amongst those in the best of the songs. It's not the 70s anymore, buddy. We don't need a double, or in this case, probably a triple or quadruple. Can you imagine? There would have been a 4 vinyl set back in the day from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Damn it. I really wanted to like Autumn. I'm not a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, but if someone's been around long enough and has the cachet to do a passion project, I like to see it succeed. Maybe it did for some long-standing supporters who will kind of just go along for the ride, but I don't know if it would make new fans of the band. And it's 3 albums.
It is.
Part 1 was released last year. Parts 2 and 3 in 2023.
It has really good moments, but it never ends.
No, and those moments are within the songs. No one song in its entirety is like, boom, take notice of me. And oddly, it sounds passionless. It taken in as a whole, it's a slog. It's hard to get through.
Agreed. It's a clinic in songwriting and structure, obviously very mature and experienced, but it lacks feeling.
For a concept album, I just don't hear a story.
Nope. I think it was an attempt to recapture the Melancholy success.
And it's supposed to be a sequel to that album. Same characters, but different names. You're kind of losing me, Billy.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I had no clue. To be honest, I never realized Melancholy had a story.
Me either. I only read that while I was listening to Autumn. And what a waste of time that was. I should have heeded your warning on that. I don't know if it's a talking point to drum up interest. If you're changing the characters' names, why not call it just a new story?
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Not only that, Autumn 3, which was released in June, I think, it was the third act, even though it's separated in its own 3 acts. So if you want to listen to the whole thing that was just released, 1, 2, 3, there's 3 acts. but this is the third act of a broader concept. Machina is the second in the series. Melancholy, as you just has talked about, was the first in the series. I had no idea these were concept albums. I think someone needs to explain to Billy what a concept album is. If all the songs you wrote for an album have a similar theme, you're probably just having a shitty week. Don't revise history and say, you didn't know these were concept albums? Oh, no, they were. Well, I change the characters' names each time, but they are the same.
Yeah, I don't think Billy would give a shit what you thought. No one needs to waste hot air to him. I mean, come on. He's into professional wrestling. I don't think he can manage complex storytelling.
Going in hard. I still can't believe he owns the NWA. That just blows my mind. Autumn needs a pile driver.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Probably a decent business to have ownership of. I wish he could get jacked at least once, like Vince McMahon did, and he could be the rat in the cage. This all my rage. Come out, yeah.
That'd be great. Cage match. He could be Zero. Obviously, he's had these characters hiding in plain sight all this time. It feels like we're primed to rant. So hold on, Jim. Let's slow it down, because this could be a time to talk about country music.
Yeah, it's a great time for that. We've already stated that we're not here as curators of music for current years anymore. So we're about to get nasty, because I've seen the notes, and we'll call this part of the show Throw Out the Garbage. We are the Grouches. We're like Oscar in the trash can and just saying,
yeah,
this is it.
Statler, Waldorf, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Disclaimer, we're not bashing all of country music, but there are a couple of guys we need to devote a little time to.
Yeah, please avoid these two. For the love of God, don't even try to tell us we're wrong.
You won't win us over. There is no world where we will like Colt Ford or Jelly Roll. So I was listening to Colt Ford and I came across Cooter Hunting from him.
Hey, wait. Say it right. Cooter Hunting.
Oh, Cooter Hunting.
Come on, man. You got to say it right.
Yeah.
To have that right impact.
If you want to lose a little bit of your soul, go listen to his album that came out this year. I can't believe that he has Vince Gill and Dan Kaminsky guesting on this album.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I listened to it on my walk, and I had to pick up my pace so I could shut it off sooner.
Words fail me. This is shit. I wanted to say crap, but no, this is shit. I will say, and it's something I support, video did not kill these country stars. They are not pretty boys. Hey, I'm a fat boy. I appreciate whatever you're trying to do. I decided to read up on Colt Ford, though, but in the Wikipedia machine, I typed Colton Ford. That was a huge mistake, Jim, because as you know from our text, Colton Ford is a former porn actor. I was extremely confused for like 10 minutes.
It's not the same guy.
Oh God, it's like going to dicks.com. Don't expect sporting goods.
I like dicks, two completely different meanings.
Colt Ford, though, he sounds like a caricature.
I wonder if Colt Ford is a persona. His real name is Jason Brown, and dude used to be a pro golfer.
Oh, geez, how authentic. And I'll call bullshit on myself a bit there. Musicians use stage names all the time. Colt Ford, that is a country music name. But Jason Brown sounds just as fine too for country music.
It does. Here's the thing about the album. For me, listening to it, the musicianship, I don't have a problem with it. The production's really good. All the songwriting tropes, it's all stuff that has been used in other songs. It's just that the songs themselves are fucking dumb. The arrangements and how it's stylized, Cooter Hunting, this other, it's full of hillbilly colloquialisms. It's like the Lonely Island made a country album, but this guy's putting it out there seriously.
And apparently country music is doing 808s and face tattoos now.
Yeah. It's called Insane Clown Country.
Oh shit. Yeah. Jelly Roll. he started out in hip hop, so he's doing some genre blending, but he's not the only one I've heard this from. Just as I was discovering this slice of hell, someone in my Facebook feed was on the same timeline of discovery. He was posting clips and he was not impressed. And he's a country fan. It was hilarious though. Jelly Roll, he's singing a song and he does the whole throwing the mic to the crowd. It's your turn. I've called you to the answer. And like 3 or 4 people responded, and the look on his face was just sheer disappointment. And Jelly Roll, you know, I had the same look when I was listening to your album. It was like there was some heavy side eye there. It was like one of my dogs farted in the room, and I was trying to figure out which one. Oh my God. But well, hold on,
Okay.
hold on. Let's pull back a little bit because the show is turning into everything new sucks.
Well, these two guys, but that's fine.
Yeah.
We've said plenty of nice things, but now, especially when we're talking about new music, you're gonna feel good to not always be nice.
Agree. You walked me back from the edge during the Disney princess rants of 2022. And for the most part, we've been really nice to new music when we probably shouldn't have been.
Well, there's nothing bad about the music necessarily, but if Country Music for Dummies was a book, Colt Ford would be the cover.
Would Colton Ford be the centerfold?
Well, it depends on yeah, I'm not going there.
Yeah, no, don't.
Yeah. If we're going to talk about rap, I'm going to at least show some respect. This sadly would be the not around anymore category, and that's Juice WRLD. He still has some posthumous releases coming out. He had a full album released, but the single that he had, The Light, for me, it was so cool. I don't like everything he's done, but this song on its own, it reached me in a really deep place.
Oh, his bars hit pretty deep. Knowing you and the year that you had last year, some of those bars can really hit hard.
Mm-hmm. There's real emotion in that vocal.
There definitely is. But staying with rap, Lil Yachty. You heard me right. Lil Yachty's album, Let's Start Here. People, you might find it interesting. Obviously, my kids introduced me to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a big fan of Lil Yachty. I just had a really hard time connecting with him. There was a lot of auto tune in his rap, kind of like T-Pain, so it can be overused and annoying. But he moved into psych rock with this album, and within what he's trying to do here, it's more accepting. At least check out the first song, The Black Seminole. There's a lot of Pink Floyd samples in maybe probably more accurate interpolations. The beginning synth is similar to On the Run. Then it slips into a little bit of Dogs. It's not one for one, but you get that feeling even in the way it's recorded. And then there's a big hunk of Great Gig in the Sky. So if you're into Pink Floyd, you really might dig Black Seminole. And while you're at it, check out I've Officially Lost Vision as well. And Radiohead fans, you might like Reach the Sunshine. It borrows from the Pyramid Song. It might be enough to hook you in to opening up to realizing that, hey, some of these new artists might have something to say.
So we've gotten off track. There were a couple more bands from the years gone past that caught our attention since January. Let's get through those guys.
Yeah, Extreme. I lost count how many times I saw people posting YouTube videos highlighting the new Extreme song Rise, because Nuno Bettencourt came out and said, just in case you forgot, and fucking melted your goddamn ears. We noted how disappointed we were with Gary Sharon's performance on that Van Halen 3 album, air quotes, and we wondered if he was just being himself or if he just wasn't a good fit. I think we were right on both accounts because he's more than fine here. And that solo is absolute fire.
This song shreds. There's some good moments on the album. I really, really have to say the Extreme, to an extent, have returned in a way that a band 30 years later possibly ever could. But Beautiful Girls, it was trying to recapture their wholehearted moment. It goes a little Sugar Ray for me. And Nuno plays another incredible solo on it, but seemingly it was kind of out of place. But as a whole, it was light and fun. Other Side of the Rainbow sounds like the missing theme song for a 90210 spinoff.
Oh, geez. And I will say one thing I noticed that in listening to this, especially in his solo, some of the guitar sounds he was getting, it kind of reminded me of Women and Children First, Fair Warning era sound for Van Halen. So it made me rethink, well, maybe that's why they were thinking of Gary Sharon in the first place for Van Halen 3. A mistake in retrospect. Moving on from Van Halen, though, we had Rancid, Tomorrow Never Comes. This was like visiting old friends and catching up on old times. Sometimes I'm happy certain things never change.
It was like playing a CD in 1999.
Yeah, you know, in a world of pop punk, just be Rancid. There's no wondering what it's going to sound like. They do their thing, and it's a good listen.
Yeah, it is.
So the music that we're talking about right now, it's trending in a harder direction. So this is a good time to say that the best metal album of the year so far is Petrodragonic Apocalypse from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Or its full name, Jim might have to help me with this because beer, Petrodragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth and the beginning of merciless damnation. Is that satire?
Well, I'm sure Sandy actually, as soon as he heard the title, went and listened to the album.
And he should, because it's great.
Yeah.
And now, okay, Jim knows that I like to poke people for a reaction, just to like eat, because I'm that kind of an arsehole. But pinky swear, I'm not doing this here. Metal fans may cry foul because they aren't a metal band. They only kind of dip their toes into the waters occasionally, but Petrodragonic is a metal album. Every week while preparing for the show, I check out metal albums, and most of the not NU, but NEW, new metal sounds, it just sounds homogenous. The guitars all sound the same. Drums, bass, sloppy bass. I don't find enough dynamic sounds, and I mean that within the different subgenres. You can have your symphonic metal, your dark metal, death metal, whatever. They all have the same sounds.
I agree. Every guitar sounds like it's going through the same pedal, using the same amps. The kick drum is placed in the exact same spot in every single mix.
Oh, spot on. But King Gizzard, they have a unique sound.
It would be easy to call them chameleons, but I think they're a band out to prove they can do it all in one way or the other. And I hope it's a reflection of all the different musical tastes within the band.
And you're right, Jim. I think they have an insatiable desire to make music. Everything revolves from a jam. You don't put out as many albums they do in a year and not love making music. But stepping back from King Gizzard, because that might, I don't know how that's going to settle with people. I'll give an honorable mention to Baby Metal's the other one. There are some really good dynamics and song development. There's also, maybe I'll call it an eccentric quality. And also, surprise, I'm going to say something positive about Metallica. 72 Seasons is a worthy listen. If I was going to pick a standout track, maybe Shadows Follow. It stood out because Hetfield had a different vocal delivery in the chorus, and I've heard some new things from him in a few other songs too. Hey, we all get older, right? 72 Seasons it's extremely solid. And Sorry, Jim, I'm going to hijack the show right now. Mutoid Man. Again, back to character. The songs were unique to my ear. They had a bit of punk edge, and to your earlier point, a different guitar sound, an actual normal singing, nothing dripping into effects. And they reminded me of Red Fang a little bit on a couple songs. I'm bringing them up.
All right, so let's get over this. Bands you need to know about is the next category of this show. If you've lost track, there are three.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
another one after this. Hopefully, Matt.
So I'm not done hijacking the show, Jim. I'm going to bring up an old favorite of mine, Local Natives. They put out an album, Time Will Wait for No One, in July. Lush harmonies, like in their song Desert Snow. It's a great way to just grab me and hold my attention. Beside that, they've been around 10 years and they've obviously evolved, and they're embracing the getting older part of life. There's always been a little bit of introspective writing, and especially in their lyrics. But the way they write their music around those lyrics reinforce that introspection. Go back to Gorilla Manor, their debut from, I think, 2009, 2010, Airplanes. He's singing about his grandfather, and it makes you want to just hug your grandfather. The more you listen to it, it is more one-on-one kind of music. But if you're going to play something at a party, I would say NYE is the closest thing you're going to get.
Then we have the Revivalists. They've been around since 2008, but really didn't start getting more well-known until maybe about 2015. The album they released this year, it's a great blend of folksy rock and radio-ready songs. They were at Bonnaroo this past summer. It's called Pour It Out Into the Night. The track Kid is a full-out live anthem, and I love the song Good Old Days. It's about making today the good old days, because someday in life, they will be. What we are living here and now are the good old days of 10 to 15 years down the line. So live them. They're good old days as we are here. And it's always about making good memories with music. And that's one of the reasons why we moved ahead in the show this way. But the other thing about the Revivalists for me, they feature a saxophone. And Matt, you know me, I'm always a sucker for a great saxophone solo.
Great sax. I'm going to move us into the 70s. So if you're looking for that 70s sound, give the Lemon Twigs a try. But the opening track, When Winter Comes Around, it gave me John Denver feels. And oh my God, Jim, vocals that aren't corrected with autotune. They go a little bit deeper than their register really wants them to go. And you can hear the voice waver a little bit, but it's human. It's great. That's what's perfect, is the imperfections. There's not a modern sounding song on this album. They dip into influences from Todd Rundgren, the Carpenters, maybe even a little post Pet Sounds, Beach Boys. Any time of day, you can hear there's a Carly Simon and Christopher Cross mix that's going on in the song. What You Were Doing is about as raucous as they get. It sounds like Alex Chilton and his band Big Star. And even their videos, they look straight out from the 70s. As much as they borrow from the decade, though, I'm going to say their songs stand on their own. Check them out. You might find it actually quite refreshing from what's popular nowadays.
Another band, well, kind of new, Inhaler. They have a album called Love Will Get You There. This is Bono's kid. We were talking about him earlier, and we were not so kind to him, but Elijah Hewson, because Bono is actually Paul Hewson, Elijah fronts this band. It's like he picks up from where U2 should have gone after Achtung Baby, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not groundbreaking, and I'm sure some people will be annoyed that he sounds so much like his dad.
And that's not his fault. But it's pretty amazing how similar their voices are. At least he's not wearing sunglasses all the fucking time.
Not at all. His songwriting's also similar. I've listened to a few of these songs and wondered if Bono might be ghostwriting for them. But I'm
That
not
could
gonna
be. Don't hold that back.
no, but I'm not gonna take the credit away from Elijah. This album isn't gonna move the world, but it's a decent, inoffensive listen. Maybe as good as background music right now or something different to listen to if you're on a long road trip. But I'm kind of hoping this is just the start for some better music to come because they're still a really young band.
Yeah, and obviously he grew up listening to a ton of U2, and that's not to say it's a rip. It's not at all. This is not a U2 rip. Inhaler, they're their own thing, but you can hear the influence in mainly his voice. But if your dad is Bono, you can't help it. You're right. It's inoffensive. On one hand, I don't feel it's something I've heard 100 times, but on the other hand, it's just okay. Which was a big problem I had in finding standouts from the first half of 2023.
Yeah.
And you tried to warn me. You've been keeping track of new releases all year, so you had a leg up on me. But you were right. The first half of 2023 was a little bit hard. But I did find the Teskey brothers at the right time. We're fairly fresh off recapping 1972 on the Jam Yearbook. So I was primed for some soulful blues in the veins of Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett. The horns were reminiscent of Al Green.
I'll give the Teskey Brothers another look. I tried to listen to them a few weeks back because they were on a morning TV show over here, but I looked them up straight away. There was nothing there that I could connect with in the moment. But Matt, I'll take your word. I'll give them another try.
Oh, you should.
All right, so let's move on to the Noobs, the last part of the show. So we have They're Still Around, bands you should pay attention to, and the Noobs. So here we are.
Well, I'll start us out with Oscar Lang and his album Look Now. The more I listen to this album, the more I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It could be but by the end of the year, this could be a top 10 album for me.
Yeah, I hear so much good in this album. He's only 23 years old and he's mastering the melodies from the Beatles to Ben Folds. He can take the best of Noel Gallagher and blend it with Elton John. You know, piano songs, guitar songs, whatever he's doing. I really hope his own generation recognizes that he's really great.
Oh, man, his musical influences are so well informed. Private message to my brother Mark right now. I think you will absolutely love this.
Yeah, Mark will
This is
love
right
Oscar
up your
Lang.
alley. But unfortunately, this is probably gonna most likely move past people because it's not in your face. Hey, pay attention to me. But it's great music.
Yeah.
This is a spectacular album.
Yeah. Then there was this punk band that I came across called Snooper, and they had an album called Super Snooper. This will go into our, if you're looking for something new and original category.
There's a lot of crazy stuff pushing boundaries on this album, which is great, but it can be a little unrealized.
Yeah. It's one of those bands I just kind of want to bring up. I might not really be into them just because I don't get it, but somebody out there listening, hopefully one person will. It's abstract punk.
Yeah, but Jim, this band brings up an important point about music. Some music takes time to reach you. Some hits right away, only to fade away fast. But when I listened to this, it was because, Jim, you thought this might be up my alley.
I did, yeah.
You did, 100%. Your term. Perfect example of right place, right time, right headspace. Another band I'll throw out there, just bleeding into this, is Sleaford Mods. At first, I was like, no, not today. But second listen, I was all in. It's got a similar charm to Tropical Foxstorm that we found in version 2019. Sometimes it just takes time for music to sink in.
Yeah, when you sent the Selford Mods to me, I went and looked them up and I sent a photo back to you. And I was like, these dudes are our age.
They are.
But it was good. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I'd hope we'd still be making great music no matter what we were doing. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna go out and buy the vinyl, but I'm gonna put it on streaming and crank it on the
yeah,
stereo,
it
right?
deserves to come on. Then there's another band that we should be putting on, and that's CVC. And
Oh
maybe we need to come to the point of the show where it's like Jim finds British bands.
yeah.
You're probably going to get a lot of this from me over the show as it progresses. We swooned over this album when it came out, and I ran out and I bought the vinyl. They're a good indie band, and I hope there's more to come from them.
Again, there's a little bit of 70s sounds in new music. It's not as dripping as the Lemon Twigs. That's a great, diverse music decade to find inspiration from. I thought indie bands were done making this kind of music. This is great stuff. And the recording, it sounds absolutely amazing.
Well, if you're going to go amazing, and I'm going to talk about British bands, then I'm also going to bring up High Fade.
Oh, please do.
I'm a local music fan. And this is a band that I kind of found out about locally. High Fade is out of Edinburgh. They're a throwback band blending classic rock and funk rock. It's got so much flash, but it's executed very well. They play out in the streets like buskers, amps and all, like full on electrified amps. I don't know what they're using for their generator to keep that all going, but a drum kit. And you might find this a little intrusive, but they draw crowds of people when they're out on the street playing their music. Their trajectory is about to rise. They start this fall in the USA touring as the opening band for the Cat Empire. And they'll even be in your area playing at Nectar's in Burlington, Vermont on October 30th. Damn straight, Matt. I'm going to say this on the show. I'm going to give them a plug right now.
Plug away. I love what I've heard. This is the kind of band I want to have a massive success. They have such an incredible energy and the songs are so cool. It's so funky. Please, if you're in the Burlington area on October 30th, I know it's close to Halloween, go to Nectar's. Check this band out. They are fantastic.
Yeah, dress up as you're like you're in the 70s because that's how you want to be for this show. Make it your Halloween night.
And finally, I will say these two words to Jim: White Reaper.
Oh, I never heard of them until yesterday. You sent a message that just said White Reaper with a question mark.
With a question
in it.
mark. Yeah.
And I didn't know what you meant. I should know better by now. So I went into Spotify and I looked them up and I found them and immediately thought, well, this first track, it sounds cool.
You must have thought it was coming up for our nickname at the beginning of the show with the Reaper and all the deaths and everything. But they're kind of like part pop punk, part Cheap Trick kind of rock.
I hear more punk rock. I think it's more traditional than recent pop punk.
Oh yeah, it's a good middle of the road punk and rock. Maybe garage rock with a little metal sensibility, but you know what? We're trying too hard to categorize it. Asking for a ride, it's a really good listen. Check it out, please.
Yeah, it is. It's catchy, great guitars. I worried everything was going to have the same beat as the first track, but they have dynamics throughout.
Yep. It's not just the same Green Day album from beginning to end.
No.
So, Jim, are we done yet? If people are still listening, well, first, thank you.
Yeah.
And they're probably hoping we're going to tie this up soon. When I first started digging into 2023, I was not impressed. But I ended up finding actually quite a lot of good music.
You mean like when you'd message me after we picked another year back in the day and you tell me there was no good music and then suddenly Deep Dive Matt would come up a week later and you found your favorite new band. Yeah, sure, Matt.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the way it was every week. Sometimes it's amazing. You'll get on this jag of finding, oh, this band sucks. This band sucks. But then all of a sudden you find the one band that is the conduit to make you accepting of the year. And I'll be honest, because I said it earlier, we were coming off 1972. It was the Lemon Twigs kind of got me in the 70s mood. And then that kind of was my gateway to saying, okay, you're just being a 50-year-old dude. Shut up, open your mind, and expand yourself to new music.
There's always going to be some good music out there. I think sometimes I recognize good music, but it does take me a little while to catch on whether or not it's going to be a song I'm going to hang on to. But we had 7 months to dig back into, so the odds were kind of in our favor. But going ahead month by month, that might be a bigger challenge for us. But yeah, I do think this is a good place to stop. And we already announced we were going to turn this boat next. Sailing takes me away.
Take me away to where I've always.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not in the right key. I'm sure it's like sailing takes me away.
Oh, just maybe not the right octave.
Yeah,
but
that's
yes,
right. Yeah,
we're going full board, all on board for Yacht Rock in our next show.
Yes. We even care for everybody who's on the upper decks and lower decks of Yacht Rock.
No upper deckers allowed on the Jam Yearbook.
Not at all. So yeah, Yacht Rock. That's where we're going to go next. And we will talk about that. I think that episode will come out on August 31st as we go to this new schedule of twice a month. So that means it'll always come out on the 14th of the month and the last day of the month, which this month is the 31st. So we are in August.
You got that, Magellan? You're all set on your dates and times?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready to sail this ship that way. So, Matt, why don't you wrap us up?
Hey, thank you for listening to the Jam Yearbook and following us through now that we've gone through the years of our lifetimes and following in through new music. We will try to and dispel some myths that music just isn't made for us anymore. Music is made for you. You just got to find it. It may be hard, but you got to find it.
Yeah, it all comes down to digging for it like you did when you were a kid and finding stuff that isn't just floating right out there on the surface for you. Because the music for your kids is for your kids, but there's still stuff out there for you that's being made, and you don't have to live in 1990 for the rest of your life.
Or in the 80s. You don't got to live in the 80s for all your life. There is music past hair metal.
Yeah, there is.
Let's move on, folks. There's great music out there. Just discover it.
Yeah, let's go find it next time. Peace, love, and podcast.